You didn't arrive here by chance. Something deeper, something beyond your logical mind, has been calling you. It is your own future self, sending out a signal across the fabric of time, guiding you to this very moment. And maybe, if you're honest, you've been feeling it for a while now. That quiet exhaustion that lingers in your bones, not the kind of tiredness that sleep can fix, but the kind that comes from carrying a vision in your heart that hasn't yet fully come alive. It feels a little like standing in a doorway, doesn't it? One foot in the life you've always known, the other foot reaching for a reality that still feels out of reach. There's a tension in that in-between space, like an archer holding the bowstring drawn too long, trembling with anticipation, waiting for the exact moment to release. That is the stage you are in right now. And I want you to know, there is nothing wrong with you for feeling restless, uncertain, or weary. This is not failure. This is the unmistakable sign that something within you is awakening. Your soul arranged this meeting, not because you needed another teaching or another piece of information, but because you needed a reminder that the strange mix of grief and longing you've been carrying is proof of transformation. Think of a seed buried in the dark soil. Before it bursts through the shell, there is pressure, resistance, even pain. And yet, that very tension is what ensures the seed's growth. In the same way, the unease you've been feeling is not punishment. It is preparation. It is the pressure that comes before new life breaks open. We live in a world that worships control, effort, and logic. We're taught that the only way forward is to push harder, to fight more, to prove ourselves worthy of change. But here's the paradox. The shift that is happening within you does not respond to force majeure. It responds to resonance. Your future self is not asking you to build something from scratch. It's inviting you to tune your inner frequency to what already exists. Imagine a radio station that has always been playing the song of your soul. You don't have to write the music. You don't even have to fix the radio. All you need is to gently turn the dial and allow the melody to come through. And yes, I know how easy it is to get lost in the static. Doubt creeps in. Old stories replay like background noise. The mind demands certainty, a step-by-step plan, a guarantee that everything will be safe and predictable. But the language of the soul is not logical, it is vibrational. It speaks in whispers of expansion, in feelings of openness, in that subtle sense of relief you get when you're aligned. You felt it before that strange calm when, for a moment, you just know you're on the right path. Even if you can't explain why, this is your invitation to trust that knowing, to stop treating your restlessness as a problem and start seeing it as a signal, because what you are experiencing is not stagnation, it is transition. The old identity is dissolving and the new one is still forming. It's messy, yes, but it's also holy. It is the sacred corridor between who you were and who you are becoming. So take a breath with me right now. Inhale as if you're breathing in the frequency of your future self-light. Peace, clarity. Exhale the weight of the old patterns, the static of the past, the tight grip of control. Feel that subtle shift, even in this small act. You are proving to yourself that the future you long for is not somewhere far away. It is here, waiting for you to allow it. This moment is no accident. It is not coincidence. It is a divine appointment arranged by your own soul. And all you need to do is say yes to release the struggle, to surrender the noise, and to allow the music of your future self to become the soundtrack of your life. Welcome to the shift. Welcome to yourself. 1. The language of the soul does not speak in words, but in energy. When I look back at my own journey, I realize something simple, yet powerful. The soul has never spoken to me in long speeches or complicated philosophies. It has always whispered in feelings. Sometimes it showed up as a sense of expansion, like a soft opening in the chest, as if the heart itself was stretching wider than the body could hold. Other times, it came as contraction, a knot in the stomach, a heaviness on the shoulders, a tightening in the jaw. These sensations were never random. They were the soul's language, clear and direct. Long before the mind could catch up. You know this language already, even if you've ignored it. Think of the times when you walked into a room and immediately felt either safe or uneasy, though no one had spoken a word. Or the moment you met someone new and sensed trust or distrust within seconds, before any logic could explain it. That is the soul speaking in its native tongue. Energy. The body becomes the instrument, and the notes are sensations, expansion, contraction, warmth, or chill. But here's the hard truth. Most of us were never taught to listen. Instead, we were taught to override, to rationalize, to dismiss. We silenced the very compass that was meant to guide us. I know I did. I spent years letting my mind dictate the path, ignoring the quiet tug in my chest that begged me to choose differently. And every time I ignored it, the cost was the same. A deeper sense of being lost, of drifting further from myself. It took me years to understand that the body never lies. The mind can justify, the ego can bargain, but the body tells the truth in real time. Expansion is the soul's way of saying yes. Contraction is the soul's way of saying no. It is that simple. Still, simplicity does not mean it's easy. When the world around you demands reasons, explanations, and evidence, trusting a mere feeling can seem foolish. I used to ask myself, what if I'm just imagining this? What if I'm mistaking fear for intuition? And yet, when I dared to follow the path of expansion, even when it made no sense, I found myself moving closer to peace, closer to alignment. Think of it like standing at a crossroads without a map. One path makes your chest feel light, your breath deeper, your body relax. The other path makes your shoulders tense, your jaw tighten, your breath shallow. The mind will argue endlessly, but the body has already given its answer. Which one will you trust? I believe this is where true courage lies, not in pushing harder against the world, but in trusting the quiet pull within. Courage is listening to the whisper when the shout of the world is louder. It is saying yes to expansion, even when logic screams no. There were nights when I couldn't sleep, when anxiety wrapped around me like chains. I thought the answer was to think harder, to plan better, to fix myself. But the more I fought, the tighter the chains became. It wasn't until I stopped and asked, where is my body closing? Where is it opening? That I began to feel a shift. Sometimes, the answer was as small as breathing into the tightness in my chest. Other times, it meant leaving behind a situation that had long expired, even though it terrified me. Each time I chose expansion over contraction, I discovered a hidden strength. Not the strength of control, but the strength of alignment. Life stopped feeling like a battle and began to feel like a current, like a river that carries you when you finally stop trying to swim upstream. And so I tell you this, not as theory, but as lived truth. The language of the soul is always available. It does not demand belief, only attention. In the silence between your thoughts, in the rise and fall of your breath, in the way your body softens or tightens, there is guidance. Perhaps the deepest freedom we can claim is to return to this forgotten language, to let the body speak, and to trust its wisdom more than the noise of the world. When you do, decisions become simpler, life becomes clearer, and you begin to realize that you were never lost, you were only learning how to listen. So as you sit here, listening to these words, take a moment. Notice your body. Does it feel like it is opening or closing, expanding or contracting? That simple awareness is the soul speaking. And once you learn to hear it, you can never unhear it. It becomes the compass that points you home. Again and again. 2. Discomfort, anxiety, and the feeling of not belonging to the old place are not enemies. They are proof that you have outgrown your old shell, that your soul is expanding into a new reality. There comes a time in every journey when the old life, the old patterns, even the old comforts no longer fit. And when that moment arrives, it rarely feels graceful. More often, it feels like irritation, unease, even deep anxiety. You wake up in the morning and realize the things that once felt familiar now feel heavy, or even suffocating. The places you used to sit no longer give you rest. The conversations that once filled your time now leave you restless. It is as if you are wearing a pair of shoes that no longer match the size of your feet. The pain is not a flaw in your foot. The pain is simply telling you, you have grown the fav. I remember seasons in my life when I felt like a stranger in my own world, surrounded by people I cared for, still doing the routines that once made sense, and yet deep inside, I felt like I didn't belong anymore. At the time, I thought something was wrong with me. I thought maybe I was broken, or maybe I was failing at being content. But looking back, I see it clearly that restlessness was not a curse. It was a signal. It was my soul expanding, stretching, whispering that it was ready for something more. The world often teaches us to see discomfort as a problem to be solved. Fix your anxiety. Silence your unease. Get rid of the restlessness. But here is the truth. I learned after many years of wrestling. Discomfort is not the enemy. Discomfort is the midwife of transformation. It is the labor pain that comes when new life is on the horizon. Just as a seed feels the pressure of the soil before it breaks through, just as a caterpillar feels the confinement of its cocoon before it becomes a butterfly, your soul feels this friction before it steps into a new reality. Anxiety, in this light, becomes a teacher. That quickened heartbeat, that restless energy, that sense of, I don't belong here anymore. They are not punishments. They are messages. They are saying, this chapter is ending. The page is about to turn. Instead of resisting them, we can learn to sit with them, to breathe into them, to ask gently, what are you trying to show me? It took me years to stop fighting my own discomfort. For a long time, I treated it as an enemy. I would numb it with busyness, silence it with distractions, or scold myself for not being stronger. But every time I ignored it, the feeling grew louder. Only when I finally sat still and said, all right, I am listening, did the discomfort soften. It revealed itself not as a monster to defeat, but as a guide pointing me forward. Think of it like standing at the edge of a familiar shore. Behind you is the land you've always known, safe, predictable, but now too small. In front of you is the open sea, vast and uncertain. Discomfort is the wind at your back, nudging you away from the shore. Anxiety is the tide pulling you out to something larger. The sense of not belonging is the deep knowing that no matter how hard you try, you cannot shrink yourself back into the smaller life you once had. And yes, this space in between is uncomfortable. You're no longer who you used to be, but not yet who you are becoming. It's the threshold, the sacred corridor between the old and the new. If you misunderstand it, you may think you're lost, but in truth, you're in the most important part of the journey. You're in the place where growth is happening. So if you feel uneasy right now, if you're restless in the routines that once felt fine, if you're anxious even when nothing seems wrong, if you look around and wonder why you no longer feel at home in the places you once did, know this: nothing is wrong with you. You are not broken. You are expanding. The old shell is cracking because your soul has become too large to be contained. Breathe into that truth. Let the discomfort remind you of your growth. Let the anxiety be proof that the old life cannot hold you anymore. Let the sense of not belonging assure you that you are already stepping into a new reality, one that is waiting to welcome you with open arms. This is not the end of your story. This is the beginning of your becoming. 3. Silence as the foundation of the new frequency. In the pause between two breaths, in the stillness, after countless thoughts, It is there that you encounter the rhythm of your future self. There is a kind of silence that goes far beyond the absence of sound. It is not the silence of an empty room, or the quiet that comes when the world finally falls asleep at night. This silence is deeper. It lives inside you, beneath the noise of your thoughts, beneath the stories your mind repeats on loop, beneath the chatter of the world around you. And it is in this silence that the frequency of your future self can be heard most clearly. For a long time, I was afraid of silence. Whenever life grew quiet, I would reach for something: music, conversation, the glow of a television screen, anything to fill the space. I thought silence was loneliness. I thought stillness was emptiness. But what I didn't realize then was that I was running away from the very doorway that led to my own soul. I was filling the space where my future self was waiting to speak. It took me walking through darkness to finally understand. In the hardest seasons of my life, when loss stripped me bare, when the noise of the world no longer offered comfort, I found myself sitting in silence. Not by choice, but by necessity. And in that silence, something remarkable happened. At first, the noise of my own mind screamed louder than ever: doubts, regrets, worries about the future. But if I stayed long enough, if I let the thoughts rise and fall without fighting them, a deeper quiet began to emerge. A stillness beneath the storm. A presence that felt ancient, steady, and unmistakably mine. That presence was not my fear. It was not my ego. It was the rhythm of my future self, the part of me that had already walked through the fire and come out whole. And the only way I could hear it was by surrendering to silence. The truth is, silence is not empty. Silence is full. It is the canvas upon which the music of your soul is painted. It is the soil where the seeds of your future are planted. In the pause between your inhale and your exhale, there is a tiny moment where time seems to disappear. In that moment, if you listen closely, you will feel a vibration that is both familiar and new. Familiar, because it has always been within you. New, because it belongs to the self you are becoming. Think of it like tuning an instrument. When a guitar is out of tune, no matter how beautiful the song, it will sound off. The silence between notes is just as important as the notes themselves. It allows the music to breathe, to find its shape, to resonate. In the same way, silence in your life is not a void to be filled, but the space where your true frequency aligns. Without it, you are only repeating the old noise. With it, you begin to harmonize with the rhythm of your future self. And yet, silence can feel uncomfortable at first. When you sit quietly, the mind wants to rush in, to fill the gap with plans, with worries, with reminders of what needs to be done. But if you stay just a little longer, if you soften into the stillness, you will notice that the mind begins to lose its grip. Beneath the noise, you will sense a steady pulse, like the quiet beating of a drum in the distance, guiding your steps. That is the song of your becoming. I often think of rivers when I speak about silence. A river does not strain to move. It does not argue with the stones in its way. It flows, sometimes softly, sometimes with great force, but always forward. And yet, if you stand by the riverbank long enough, you will hear that between the rushing of water, there are moments of calm, pools of stillness, where the surface is like glass. It is in those moments that the river reveals its depth. So it is with you. In your silence, your depth is revealed. This silence does not demand effort. You don't have to force it or make it happen. It is already here, waiting beneath the noise. All you must do is pause, breathe, and allow it. In the stillness, you will find the foundation of the new frequency. It is not about becoming someone else. It is about tuning yourself to the resonance that has always been calling you home. So the next time you feel lost in the chaos of thoughts or weighed down by the pressure of life, give yourself permission to stop, to sit, to breathe, to feel the quiet that exists beneath everything else. For in that silence, in that sacred pause between two breaths, you will encounter the steady, timeless rhythm of your future self. And once you feel it, you will know this is the frequency you were always meant to live by. 4. The body as a quantum antenna. If the mind is the listener, then the body is the violin. Only when you soften, breathe deeply, and release the cramped memories can the body become supple enough to receive the new frequency. For a long time, I thought transformation was purely a matter of the mind. I believed that if I read the right books, repeated the right affirmations, or thought positively enough, my life would change. And while the mind does play a role, I eventually discovered something much deeper. The body holds the key. The body is not just flesh and bone. It is memory. It remembers every joy, every wound, every fear, every moment of safety or danger. It carries the echoes of the past more faithfully than the mind ever could. When something frightens you, notice how your shoulders tense. When something excites you, notice how your chest expands. The body reacts before the mind has even formed words. That is because your body is an antenna picking up frequencies, tuning into signals, vibrating with the resonance of your lived experience. But here is the truth many of us overlook: when the body is locked in tension, when it carries too many unprocessed memories, it becomes rigid, like an instrument left in the cold too long. A violin with strings pulled too tight cannot create music. It can only screech. In the same way, a body that is stiff with old fear or heavy with suppressed emotions struggles to receive the subtle frequency of the future self. I learned this lesson the hard way. There were years when my body felt like a battlefield. Sleepless nights, shallow breathing, muscles that refused to relax even in rest. At the time, I thought it was just stress. But later, I realized it was my body holding on to the old stories, the old pain, refusing to let them go. My mind wanted to step forward, but my body was still clinging to yesterday. The shift only began when I started treating my body not as an obstacle, but as a sacred partner. I stopped demanding it to perform. Instead, I began to listen. I asked, "Where are you holding tension? What are you still trying to protect me from?" And slowly, with breath, with gentleness, with presence, the body started to open. Think of it like this: the mind may be the listener, eager to catch the music of the soul, but the body is the violin through which the melody is played. If the violin is out of tune, the listener cannot enjoy the music. But when the body is soft, supple, and open, it becomes a perfect vessel. Every breath becomes a string plucked, every heartbeat becomes a rhythm, and through it, the song of your future self can finally be heard. This is why practices like deep breathing, stretching, mindful movement, even simple walks in nature are not trivial. They are acts of recalibration. Each slow inhale tells the body, "You are safe now." Each gentle exhale releases a fragment of the old shell. Over time, the body begins to believe it. The nervous system shifts from survival to openness, and in that openness, the new frequency can flow in without resistance. One of the most profound realizations I had is that the body does not lie. You can convince yourself with thoughts, but if your jaw is clenched and your stomach is in knots, your body is telling you the truth. It is your most honest teacher, and it is also your most reliable antenna. When you are aligned, your body feels expansive, light, as if there's more room inside your skin. When you are misaligned, the body contracts, tightens, shrinks. The signal is always there. You only need to pay attention. So I invite you now to try something simple. Place your hand on your chest. Take a deep breath in. Slowly, gently, imagine the air as golden light, tuning your strings, softening your muscles, Exhale, and with it, release one small weight you no longer need to carry. Do this a few times, not as a ritual of control, but as an act of kindness toward yourself. This is how you prepare the instrument. This is how you honor the body as the sacred antenna it is. Your future self is always broadcasting its song. The question is your body tuned to hear it? When you learn to soften, to breathe, to release the cramped memories that no longer serve you, you become not just a listener but a living instrument of that song. And in that moment, the distance between who you are and who you are becoming disappears. There is only the music. 5. Quantum echo, the final resonance before the shift. Before the transition is complete, the old world will test you with familiar situations. But remember, this is not a step backward. It is the final exam before graduation. There is a strange moment in every deep transformation, a moment I have come to call the quantum echo. It is the echo of your past life reverberating through your present, almost as if the universe is asking, "Are you sure you're ready to move on?" You might feel like you've been making progress, your heart lighter, your awareness sharper, your soul more at peace. And then suddenly, as if out of nowhere, an old pattern appears. An argument you thought you'd outgrown, a fear you believed you had already healed, a person from the past showing up, pressing the same buttons you thought no longer existed. In those moments, it's easy to feel discouraged. I know I did. I remember sitting in silence, wondering, why is this happening again? Haven't I done the work? Haven't I already moved past this? And the temptation is strong to believe you've slipped back into old ways. But here is the deeper truth. This is not regression. This is confirmation. The very appearance of these echoes means that you are closer than ever to your breakthrough. Think of it like the last days of winter. The snowstorms sometimes rage strongest just before the first signs of spring. The cold tries to hold on, even as the warmth of a new season is already rising. In the same way, the echoes of your old life grow loudest just before they fade. They are the final resistance of a system that knows its time is ending. When I began to see these echoes as a test rather than a failure, something shifted inside me. Instead of asking, "Why am I back here again?" I started asking, "How can I respond differently this time?" Because that is the true purpose of the echo. It is not there to punish you. It is there to give you the chance to embody your new frequency when faced with the familiar noise of the old one. Imagine a student at the end of a long course. The teacher hands out the final exam, not to trick the student, but to allow them to demonstrate what they have learned. Passing the test does not mean you never struggled. It means you are ready to graduate. In the same way, each quantum echo is a final exam for your soul. When the old fear arises, do you collapse into it? Or do you breathe through it with your new awareness? When the familiar conflict knocks on your door, do you fight the old battle? Or do you choose peace instead? I remember one such echo vividly. An old wound resurfaced through a conversation with someone I hadn't seen in years. The same words, the same accusations, the same sharp edge of judgment. It felt like déjà vu. My body tightened instantly, wanting to react the way I always had. But then, in the pause between breath and reaction, I remembered, this is the echo. This is my test. So instead of defending myself, I chose silence. Instead of anger, I chose compassion. And in that moment, the pattern broke. The echo dissolved, because I no longer fed it with the same energy. That is how the echo works. It repeats the form of the past, but gives you the chance to change your frequency in the present. And once you do, the pattern loses its grip. It fades, not because the world changed, but because you did. So if you find yourself facing old struggles again, don't despair. Don't believe the lie that you failed or that nothing has changed. Recognize the echo for what it is, the universe's way of letting you prove to yourself and to life itself that you are no longer the same. The quantum echo is not a setback. It is your graduation day. Treat it as such. Face it with patience, with presence, with love. And when you walk through it without falling back into the old rhythm, you will know deep in your bones the shift has already happened. 6. Intuition and reason often stand opposed. One lives in the future, the other clings to the past. This tug of war exhausts you, but it is also the gateway to learning how to trust your inner guidance. For as long as I can remember, I have felt this pull inside me. On one side, there is reason, the logical voice that measures, compares, calculates, and demands proof. On the other side, there is intuition, the quiet whisper that cannot always explain itself, yet somehow knows. These two voices rarely speak the same language, and when they argue, the tension can feel unbearable. Reason points backward. It builds its arguments on what has already happened: past failures, past disappointment, past evidence. It says, "You've tried before, and it didn't work. Be careful. Don't take the risk." It is like a lawyer presenting files and records, proving why the future must look like the past. Intuition, however, points forward. It comes with no paperwork, no guarantees. It simply says, "Go this way. Trust this feeling." It is like a compass pointing north, even when the map is missing. And because it cannot be measured in facts and figures, reason dismisses it as unreliable. Living caught between these two can be exhausting. It feels like standing in the middle of a rope being pulled in opposite directions. Your body grows tense, your mind restless. You wonder which voice to believe. Follow reason, and you may feel safe, but also stagnant. Follow intuition, and you may feel alive, but also terrified. I know this struggle well. There were times in my life when intuition was nudging me toward change, toward leaving a job that drained me, ending a relationship that no longer aligned, moving into unknown territory. Yet reason fought back with all its strength. You need the security. You can't walk away. What if it all goes wrong? For weeks, sometimes months, I lived in that tug of war, unable to choose. The longer I stayed there, the heavier it felt, until I realized the weight wasn't coming from either path. It was coming from standing still in the middle. The truth I discovered is this: the tug of war itself is not a punishment. It is a teacher. It is the place where we learn to surrender our addiction to certainty and begin to trust the subtle guidance within. The fatigue you feel when reason and intuition battle is the signal that you are being invited into deeper faith. Not blind faith in something external, but faith in the wisdom that lives inside you. One moment stands out for me. I was driving late at night, wrestling with a decision that reason told me was reckless, but intuition kept urging me to take. The radio was playing softly, but my mind was louder. Then, as I came to a red light, I felt a sudden quiet inside, just for a breath. And in that quiet, the message was clear. You already know. It wasn't shouted. It wasn't explained. It was a gentle knowing that spread through my chest. In that instant, the exhaustion lifted. I realized the battle ended, the moment I chose to trust the inner voice, even without proof. Reason has its place. It protects us, helps us navigate the practical world, keeps us grounded. But it was never meant to lead. Intuition is the leader. Reason is the servant. When we reverse the order, life becomes small. When we honor the order, life becomes expansive. So if you feel torn today, if you are tired from the inner conflict, pause and ask yourself, which voice is rooted in fear of the past? And which voice carries the lightness of possibility? Which voice contracts your body? And which voice expands it? The answer is already there, waiting in the silence beneath the noise. This struggle between intuition and reason is not the end of your journey. It is the doorway. It teaches you how to step out of the prison of the past and walk into the freedom of the future. And though it may feel like a battlefield, it is actually the training ground where trust is born. 7. Co-creative expression. When you align with the frequency of your future, every small choice from your words, to your gaze, to the way you walk, becomes a shared act of creation with the universe. As if you and the whole of existence are writing one piece of music together, there is a quiet beauty in realizing that life is not something you control, nor something that simply happens to you. Life is a partnership. When you begin to align with the frequency of your future self, you start to notice how even the smallest gestures, the smallest decisions, ripple outward into the fabric of the universe. It is as though every step you take is not just your own, but part of a larger choreography being written moment by moment. I remember the first time I sensed this clearly. It wasn't during a grand meditation or a life-changing event. It was while pouring a cup of tea. My mind was unusually quiet that morning. As I lifted the cup, I noticed the warmth in my hands, the way the steam curled upward, the way my breath matched its rising, and in that simple act, I felt connected to the earth that grew the tea leaves, to the water that flowed into my kettle, to the quiet rhythm of my own heartbeat. It struck me that I wasn't just drinking tea, I was participating in a vast, unspoken dance. This is what co-creation feels like. It is not about forcing outcomes or demanding miracles. It is about recognizing that your life is already woven into the universe's tapestry. When you live in alignment with your future self, your presence alone adds a note to the symphony of existence. Your choices, no matter how ordinary they seem, become instruments through which the universe plays its song. Think about the way music works. A single note by itself may sound simple, even incomplete, but when played in harmony with others, it becomes part of a melody that moves hearts. In the same way, your smile to a stranger, your pause before reacting in anger, your decision to speak a kind word instead of a harsh one. These are notes. On their own, they may seem small, but together, they create a rhythm that not only changes your own life, but resonates through the lives of others. When you are misaligned, life feels discordant. You may feel as if you are playing an instrument out of tune, creating noise instead of harmony. But when you begin to live from the vibration of your future self anchored in peace, gratitude, and openness, the noise begins to settle. Suddenly, your actions flow more naturally. The conversations you have seem to arrive at just the right time. Encounters feel meaningful rather than random. Even obstacles begin to look less like punishments and more like changes in tempo, guiding you to adjust and grow. I used to believe creativity was only for artists, musicians, or writers, but now I see that creativity is the essence of living itself. To wake up and choose presence instead of distraction is an act of creation. To choose compassion instead of judgment is an act of creation. To walk slowly enough to notice the sky. To breathe deeply enough to feel your chest expand. These are not passive moments. They are your way of writing new music with the universe. And here is the most humbling truth the universe responds. Every time you align your choices with the frequency of love and expansion, the field around you rearranges. It offers synchronicities, opportunities, and subtle confirmations. It is as if the universe whispers back, "I heard your note. Let me play with you." What once felt like coincidence begins to feel like a conversation. So when you feel uncertain about the future, remember this. You are not meant to write the entire symphony in one day. All you are asked to do is play your note with sincerity. To live this moment as fully and authentically as you can. When you do, the universe joins in, weaving your note into the larger composition of existence. Every choice you make, every word, every glance, every step is not insignificant. It is part of a co-creative dialogue. And the more you honor that truth, the more you will feel that you are not walking alone. You are walking in rhythm with the whole of life. Your small acts resonating as sacred music across the cosmos. 8. Synchronicities. the meaningful coincidences that serve as messages from the universe, a repeating number, an unexpected encounter. These are not accidents, but signals that you are tuning into the right frequency. There are moments in life when the ordinary suddenly feels extraordinary. You look at the clock and see the same numbers again and again. 11:11, 3:33, 4:44. Or you think of a friend you haven't spoken to in years, and the phone rings, and it's them on the other end. You walk into a bookstore, and a book falls from the shelf, carrying exactly the words you needed to hear. These are synchronicities, and once you begin to notice them, you realize they are not random at all. I used to brush these moments aside. I told myself they were just coincidence, tricks of the mind, patterns my brain wanted to find. And yet, deep inside, every time they happened, I felt a quiet stirring like a soft tug on my heart, reminding me that something larger was at play. Over time, I learned to trust that feeling because synchronicities are the universe's way of saying, yes, you're listening, you're moving in the right direction. Think of synchronicities as mile markers on a long road. When you're driving through unfamiliar territory, it's easy to wonder if you've gone off course. But then you see a sign that confirms you're still on the highway, still heading toward your destination. The sign doesn't take you there by itself, but it reassures you that you're aligned. Synchronicities do the same. They are the universe's mile markers, reminding you that your inner frequency is in resonance with the path ahead. I remember a time when I was wrestling with a big decision whether to leave behind the comfort of the known and step into something completely new. My mind was in turmoil, fear pulling me back, intuition pulling me forward. One evening, I went for a walk to clear my head. As I turned the corner, I saw a billboard with a single word on it: begin. My chest opened instantly, as if the word had been written just for me. The next morning, as I sipped my coffee, the same word appeared on the cover of a magazine someone had left at the cafe. I laughed, not because it was funny, but because I knew the universe was echoing my own inner truth, speaking back to me in a language I could understand. This is what synchronicities do. They act like mirrors, reflecting your inner vibration back to you in the outer world. If you are open, you will see them everywhere. They might come as numbers, as songs on the radio, as overheard conversations, as unexpected encounters. They are not about superstition. They are about alignment. When your inner state resonates with your future self, the outer world responds in kind, weaving little confirmations into the fabric of your day. Skeptics will say, it's nothing more than chance. And maybe they're right, in part. But here's the deeper question. Why do these chances show up precisely when your heart needs them most? Why do they arrive in the very moments you are seeking clarity, courage, or comfort? To me, that is not evidence of randomness. It is evidence of grace. What matters most is how you respond. If you dismiss synchronicities, they fade into the background, like forgotten whispers. But if you pause, breathe, and receive them as sacred messages, they grow stronger, more frequent, more undeniable. They become threads of light, guiding you through the unknown. Each one says, keep going. You're on the right frequency. You are not alone. I encourage you to treat them with reverence. When you see a repeating number, stop and smile. When a song arrives with the exact words you needed, let gratitude wash over you. When an unexpected meeting opens a door, recognize it for what it is: the universe composing with you. By honoring synchronicities, you amplify their presence. You build a dialogue with life itself. And maybe that is the most healing truth of all, that you are not wandering aimlessly, stumbling in the dark. You are part of a grand conversation, one that stretches beyond logic, beyond time. Synchronicities are the punctuation marks in that conversation. Little reminders that the story you are living is in harmony with the story your soul has always known. So the next time life surprises you with one of these coincidences, don't shrug it off. Let it sink into your bones. Let it remind you that the universe is listening and that your future self is smiling, saying, "Yes, you are exactly where you need to be." 9. The fatigue you feel is not weakness, but the strain of running two systems at once, the old one built on fear and control, and the new one built on surrender and intuition. There are days when you wake up already tired, as if the weight of the world has settled on your shoulders before the day has even begun. No matter how much you rest, the heaviness lingers. You wonder if you are losing strength, if perhaps you are not as resilient as you once were. But I want to tell you something from my own experience. This exhaustion is not proof of weakness. It is the natural result of trying to live in two realities at once. Think of it like using an old computer that still runs outdated software while simultaneously trying to install a new, advanced program. The machine slows down, overheats, struggles to keep up. It isn't because the new program is broken, it's because the system wasn't designed to carry both at the same time. That is exactly what happens inside of us. During transformation, the old self still clings to survival, fear, and the need to control everything, while the emerging self is learning to trust, to flow, to listen to intuition. Living in this in-between creates an internal short circuit, and yes, it is exhausting. I lived in that tension for years. By day, I tried to keep up with the demands of the old world plans, deadlines, expectations, the constant need to prove myself. But by night, when the noise quieted, I could feel the pull of something deeper, the urge to surrender, to breathe, to live from a place of trust rather than force. It felt like having one foot on the gas and the other on the brake. No wonder I was tired. The exhaustion you feel is not a flaw. It is a signal. It is telling you that you are in transition, that the old system is still running, but the new one is already installing. And here's the thing. The old system runs on effort. It drains you because it demands constant vigilance, always protecting, always calculating, always bracing for what might go wrong. The new system, by contrast, runs on ease. It does not push, it receives. It does not tighten, it opens. It does not demand that you prove your worth. It simply asks you to allow yourself to be. But here is why the exhaustion can feel unbearable. The two systems cannot coexist forever. The more you try to cling to both, the more energy you burn. Imagine holding on to one boat that is drifting downstream while keeping your other foot on the dock. You cannot stay stretched like that for long. The body will ache, the muscles will tremble, and eventually, you will have to choose. This is the invitation of your fatigue, to stop resisting, to stop running both programs at once, to give yourself permission to let the old system shut down, and though it may feel frightening to release the habits of fear and control, you will find that once you step fully into the new frequency, once you choose trust, surrender, and intuition, the exhaustion begins to lift, not overnight, but gradually, like a dawn that brightens the sky after a long night. I remember the first taste of that relief. I was sitting in silence, my mind still trying to organize and plan, when I whispered aloud, "I don't know the way, and I don't need to." In that moment, something in me softened, my breath deepened, the tension in my chest eased. Nothing outside had changed. Yet, I felt lighter. That was the shift, the old system losing power, the new one taking root. So if you are weary today, I'll be gentle with yourself. Do not mistake your fatigue for failure. Do not confuse it with weakness. It is the mark of someone standing on the threshold between worlds. The old is still clinging. The new is still growing. And your body is carrying both. Trust that the tiredness is temporary. Trust that it is guiding you to let go. Sooner or later, You will find that you can no longer keep one hand on the old while reaching for the new. You will have to release the past, not as an act of force, but as an act of mercy toward yourself. And when you do, the exhaustion will no longer be your daily companion. In its place, you will feel something softer, steadier, an energy that flows not from effort, but from alignment. Your soul is not asking you to be stronger. It is asking you to be freer. 10. The double frequency. The double frequency is like standing with one foot in the old boat and one foot in the new. Only when you place your whole body on one side can the river carry you. There is a unique kind of weariness that comes from being divided. I know it well. It feels as though part of you is reaching forward, yearning for what is possible, while another part clings tightly to what is familiar. You end up suspended in between, pulled in two directions, yet moving in neither. This is what I call living in a double frequency. The old boat is the life you know well. It is the boat of fear, control, habits, and identities that once kept you safe, but now feel too small. You know the creak of its wood, the weight of its oars, the way it drifts along the currents of survival. There is comfort in its familiarity, even if that comfort has grown stale. The new boat is different. It is lighter, quieter. It is the vessel of trust, surrender, and intuition. It doesn't rely on the frantic strokes of your effort, but on the flow of the river itself. It is guided not by the memory of storms you've already faced, but by the rhythm of the current beneath you. And though your heart longs to step fully into this boat, your mind hesitates. What if it tips over? What if the river is too wild? What if I don't know where it will take me? So you stand with one foot in each boat. At first, it seems manageable. You think you can balance both, stay safe in the old, while testing the waters of the new. But the longer you remain there, the more unstable it becomes. The boats drift apart. Your body stretches. Your muscles ache. Your energy drains. You cannot stay divided forever. At some point, you must choose. I lived in that split for years, pretending it was possible to keep both lives alive at once. Outwardly, I played the part the world expected of me: steady, predictable, responsible. Inwardly, I was drawn toward silence, freedom, and a new way of living that felt truer than anything before. But trying to hold both only left me exhausted and frustrated. The river wasn't carrying me anywhere, because I hadn't given myself fully to its current. The moment of change came not through force, but through surrender. I remember sitting quietly one evening, feeling the ache of trying to balance on both boats. My chest was tight, my mind restless, and in the stillness, I heard a whisper inside: "You cannot be carried until you let go." It was so simple, and yet it pierced me to the core. That night, I chose. I placed both feet in the new boat, not because I had no fear, but because I could no longer bear the weight of being divided. What surprised me most was this: the river held me. The moment I gave myself fully to one frequency, life began to move again. Opportunities appeared. Synchronicities unfolded. Peace returned. It wasn't that the river suddenly changed, it had always been flowing. The difference was that I was finally letting it carry me. This is the invitation before you. The double frequency is not a punishment, but it is a signal. It shows you the cost of hesitation. It asks you to see clearly that you cannot live with one hand on the past and one hand on the future. To step fully into the new does not mean you erase the old. It means you honor it for carrying you this far. And then you release it, so the river can take you where you are meant to go. So if you feel stretched thin, weary from trying to balance both lives, know this: the river is waiting. It does not demand that you swim upstream, only that you trust its current. Place both feet in the boat of your future. Allow yourself to be carried, and as you do, you will discover that the flow of life is not your enemy. It is your greatest ally. 11. Higher emotions. Gratitude, joy, and love are the keys. They are not just feelings, but quantum carriers that synchronize you most quickly with your future self. There was a time in my life when I thought emotions were simply reactions to circumstances. If something good happened, I felt happy. If something was taken away, I felt sorrow. Emotions, I believed, were byproducts of the outer world. But as I walked through seasons of darkness, I began to notice something else. Certain emotions had a power that went beyond circumstance. Gratitude, joy, and love were not simply reactions. They were states of being. And when I allowed myself to dwell in them, even briefly, something shifted, both inside me and around me. Gratitude was the first key I discovered. Not the shallow gratitude of pretending everything was fine, but the deep gratitude that comes when you pause long enough to notice the miracle of being alive. I remember a night when everything seemed to be falling apart, my plans unraveling, my future uncertain. I was lying awake, restless, and then, almost without thinking, I placed my hand on my chest and felt my heart beat. That steady rhythm reminded me I am here. I am alive. A wave of gratitude washed over me, not because life was perfect, but because life was present. That single moment softened the fear in me. It didn't fix everything, but it tuned me to a frequency that felt closer to peace. Joy came next, though not in the way I once imagined. Joy is not always loud or ecstatic. Sometimes joy is quiet, like sunlight spilling across a wooden floor, or laughter shared over a simple meal. I found that when I chose to let these small moments matter, when I allowed myself to savor them instead of rushing past, my entire body felt lighter. Joy is expansive. It opens the chest, deepens the breath, and lifts the spirit toward possibility. And each time I chose joy, I felt as if my future self was meeting me halfway, saying, "Yes, this is the rhythm. Stay here." And then there is love, the deepest frequency of all. Not the love that clings, not the love that demands, but the love that simply flows. Love for the people in your life. Yes, but also love for yourself, for the sky, for the very fact of existence. Love is the great harmonizer. It erases the illusion of separation and reminds you that you are part of something vast, connected, eternal. When love fills you, the fear that once seemed so heavy loses its weight. Love is the frequency of your future self, already living within you, waiting to be chosen. What I have come to understand is this: gratitude, joy, and love are not just feelings. They are quantum signals. They are carriers that transmit your being into resonance with a higher reality. Think of them as radio waves. When you tune yourself to gratitude, you send out a signal that attracts experiences of abundance. When you tune to joy, you align with the rhythm of growth and flow. When you embody love, you synchronize with the highest frequency of all, where your future self already lives. The beauty of these emotions is that they are always available. You don't need perfect conditions to feel them. You can choose gratitude for a single breath. You can find joy in the taste of water on your tongue. You can offer love by simply wishing well for someone passing by on the street. Small choices, yes, but each one shifts your frequency. Each one brings you closer to the self you are becoming. And here's the miracle: the more you practice, the faster the resonance builds. It is like striking a tuning fork. At first, the sound is faint, but if you strike it again and again, the vibration grows stronger, until the entire instrument hums with the same frequency. Gratitude, joy, and love work the same way. The more you return to them, the more your entire being begins to resonate with the energy of your future self. So if you are seeking alignment, if you are weary of living in fear and control, remember this: you don't need to force a massive breakthrough. Begin with a breath of gratitude, a moment of joy, a simple act of love. These are not small things. They are the keys. They are the quantum carriers that can move you faster than any amount of effort or striving. Your future self is already waiting, already vibrating at this frequency. And every time you choose gratitude, joy, and love, you step closer, until one day, you realize you are no longer reaching for that self. You are already living as them. 12. Becoming the keeper of the frequency. No one else can protect the new vibration except you. Every choice in the day, breathing instead of reacting, giving thanks instead of complaining, is how you guard and strengthen the new frequency. There comes a point in every journey of transformation when you realize the breakthrough is not a single event. It is not a lightning strike that changes everything forever. It is a practice, a rhythm, a series of choices, made moment by moment, that either nourish your new vibration or pull you back into the old one. This is the work of becoming a keeper of the frequency. I used to believe that once I reached a certain level of awareness, I would never fall back. That once I had a profound insight or a spiritual awakening, the old patterns would vanish for good. But life taught me otherwise. The old world has a way of whispering in your ear, tempting you to return to its familiar rhythms. Stress will come. People will test your patience. Circumstances will challenge your peace. In those moments, it is not the grand declarations that sustain you. It is the small, quiet choices. To be a keeper of the frequency means you take responsibility for your vibration. You stop waiting for the world to protect your peace, because you know that peace is yours to protect. When someone speaks harshly, your old self may want to lash out, but the keeper pauses, breathes, and chooses presence instead of reaction. When life feels heavy, your old self may want to complain or curse the day, but the keeper remembers gratitude, even for the smallest blessing: the taste of water, the sound of birds, the gift of breath. These choices may seem insignificant to the outside world, but they are everything. They are the way you anchor the frequency of your future self into the present moment. It is like tending a fire. When you first light it, the flame is fragile. A gust of wind, a careless step, and it could go out. But if you guard it, if you feed it with care, it grows stronger. Eventually, it becomes a steady flame, and then a roaring fire that no storm can extinguish. Your frequency is the same. In the beginning, it feels delicate, easily disturbed, but with each conscious choice, each breath of awareness, each act of gratitude, you strengthen it, and over time, it becomes unshakable. This does not mean you will never stumble. There are still days when I fall into old patterns, when fear takes the driver's seat or irritation spills out of me. But being a keeper of the frequency is not about perfection. It is about returning, again and again, to the vibration you have chosen. Each time you notice yourself slipping, and you gently shift back to presence, you are proving that the new frequency is stronger than the old. And perhaps the most beautiful part of this practice is that it doesn't just serve you. When you hold your frequency, you become a lighthouse for others. Your calm presence in the middle of chaos reminds those around you that peace is possible. Your quiet gratitude softens hearts. Your love becomes contagious. In this way, keeping your frequency is not selfish. It is an act of service to the whole. So what does it look like? Practically, it looks like taking one slow breath before you answer the phone. It looks like choosing to see what is working instead of what is broken. It looks like pausing at the end of the day to whisper, "Thank you," even if the day was hard. These are not grand acts, but they are the stitches that weave your new reality. The truth is, no one else can do this for you. No teacher, no partner, no system can hold your frequency in place. They can inspire you, guide you, encourage you, but at the end of the day, it is your choice. It is your breath. It is your willingness to protect the flame within you. And when you embrace that responsibility, not as a burden, but as a gift, you discover a quiet power. You realize that the shift is not something fragile you might lose, but something living within you that grows stronger every time you choose it. You are no longer waiting for the world to change. You are embodying the change, here and now. To become a keeper of the frequency is to honor the truth that your vibration is sacred, to treat it as something worth protecting, to feed it with gratitude, to strengthen it with love, to steady it with presence. And as you do, you will find that the world around you begins to respond, not because it has changed first, but because you have. You are the living proof of the shift. You are no longer the person who pressed play. Something has shifted in you. The signal has been received. The antenna within you has been tuned, and the frequency has already anchored itself in your being. This isn't about chasing after something outside yourself anymore. It's about living from what is already here, from the resonance that has quietly taken root in your soul. When you begin to walk from this new place, life does not become perfect in the way your old mind once imagined. Challenges still come, storms still rise, and the noise of the old world still echoes. But the difference is profound. You now carry within you a steady tone, a rhythm that does not waver when the outer world shakes. Peace becomes your message, not because everything around you is peaceful, but because you have discovered a stillness inside that cannot be taken. Gratitude becomes your evidence, not forced gratitude, not pretending, but a deep and natural awareness of the gifts that are already here. The breath in your lungs, the ground beneath your feet, the people who cross your path, the lessons hidden even in the hardest days. Gratitude is no longer a discipline you struggle to maintain. It becomes the lens through which you see life itself. And the more you see through that lens, the more beauty reveals itself. Even in the most ordinary moments, joy becomes your song, not the fleeting excitement that comes and goes with circumstance, but the joy that hums quietly in your chest, simply because you are alive. It is the joy of a warm sunbeam, of laughter, shared without reason, of the way your heart swells when you recognize yourself in the eyes of another. This joy is not loud, but it is steady. It reminds you that the true wealth of life is not measured in possessions or achievements, but in the quality of your presence. And love becomes your anchor, not love that clings or demands, but love that flows freely, that says yes to existence, that softens your edges and opens your heart wider than you thought possible. This love is not something you seek, it is something you become. And in becoming it, you invite others to feel safe enough to do the same. There will be moments when the old world tries to call you back. Familiar patterns may knock on your door. Old fears may whisper in your ear. And you may feel for a moment that you are slipping. But remember, what you are hearing is only an echo. It has no real power unless you give it power. Your true reality is the bright rhythm already rising within you, the frequency of your future self, now alive in your present. You are not simply chasing transformation anymore. You are embodying it. You are the living proof that change is real, that healing is possible, that a new way of being can take root in this world. You are no longer searching for the doorway. You have become the doorway. Through you, the frequency of love, wholeness, and truth enters the world. So hold on to this simple truth. Every moment is an invitation. Each breath offers you a choice to slip back into the old, or to remain steady in the new. Choose peace over reaction. Choose gratitude over complaint. Choose love over fear. These choices are not small. They are the very way you keep the flame alive, the way you strengthen the resonance until it becomes unshakable. And when you do, the universe will respond. It will meet you note for note, weaving your vibration into the greater song of creation. You will discover that you were never alone, never separate, never cut off. You were always part of a symphony, one that is now, finally, playing through you. You are the evidence that the shift is real. You are the living doorway through which the new frequency enters this world. And as long as you choose to stay aligned with love and wholeness, life itself will rise up to harmonize with you, creating a symphony of co-creation more beautiful than anything you could have planned. The shift has already begun. The music is already playing. And you are the song.